Good evening. Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. Alone and in her pajamas, Alice Guo is captured by Indonesian authorities at a hotel in a dramatic raid in the wee hours of the morning.
But the process to deport her has run into some complication as the Indonesian government wants a prisoner swap between Guo and an Australian high-value drug suspect named Gregor Johan Haas.
And Guo's associate Cassandra Ong had to be excused by the House Quad Committee this evening over a medical emergency. But before that, they finally got her to admit that she was involved in POGO operations.
Is there any other big story tonight? Well, news of her arrest has taken over social media all day. The infamous Alice Guo is now in the custody of Indonesian authorities.
Now, Guo's arrest came nearly 2 weeks after her sister Sheila and Cassandra Ong were also intercepted in Indonesia. She was captured in a dramatic raid in the wee hours of the morning.
The next question is, when will she be brought back to the Philippines? And the answer is turning out to be a little more complicated than authorities bargained for. Baron Castillo with tonight's big story.
It was at 12:58 a.m. Manila time on September 4 when Indonesian authorities finally caught up with dismissed Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Guo. She was captured in the Indonesian city of Tangerang, which is part of the Greater Jakarta area, where Guo was last spotted by Indonesian immigration authorities. In this photo and video released by the Bureau of Immigration, Guo is seen sporting shorter hair. She was also arrested in her pajamas as she was finally cornered while staying at a hotel. Immigration spokesperson Dana Sandoval said Guo's capture is the culmination of days of surveillance.
Actually, linggo na rin po ito tinatrack. Mula nung panahon po na pumasok sila ng Indonesia, pinaalam po natin sa Indonesian Immigration na sila po ay may kaso na kinakaharap dito sa Pilipinas, as well as merong multiple na identities having both a Philippine and a Chinese passport. And we believe na yun po ang nakikita ng Indonesian authorities na violation din on their end. Of course, they do not want illegal aliens also to stay in their country.
After the capture of Sheila Guo and Cassandra Ong, Alice Guo was seen going around Indonesia. She moved around in taxis and transferred from one hotel to another.
Mukhang merong mga tumutulong dito kay Mayora doon sa preparations niya, sa pag-ikot-ikot niya, doon sa mga sinasakyan po niya. Merong isang allegedly Singaporean or Chinese national na tumutulong daw sa kanya doon sa bookings niya sa mga hotels.
Alice Guo remains in the custody of Indonesian police, but PNP Chief General Romel Marbil was able to talk to her today.
I was there during the Zoom meeting and we requested na maipakita sa atin si Alice Guo at pinakita naman sa atin nung ating counterparts.
Before her capture, Alice Guo evaded authorities for nearly 3 months. She was last seen in the Philippines last May when she attended a Senate hearing. She no longer appeared in the July 10 hearing, prompting senators to cite her in contempt and have her brought to the Senate. Eventually, authorities were able to piece together that she first fled to Malaysia on July 18 on a boat. Lawmakers presumed her port of entry was Sabah. Then she went to Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and also traveled to Batam, Indonesia on August 18 via ferry with Sheila and Wesley Guo and Cassandra Ong. Wesley Guo is believed to have left Indonesia and is now in Hong Kong. It is still not clear when Alice Guo will be brought back to the Philippines, but Justice Secretary Boying Remulla said NBI agents and DOJ prosecutors are on their way to Indonesia.
May mga komplikasyon na nandyan na pinag-aaralan namin ngayon. There are other issues between Indonesia and the Philippines that have to be resolved when it comes to this. Marami tayong pending incidents. At baka malagay si Alice Guo sa gitna ng pending incidents.
Turns out, the issues Remulla was referring to has to do with a prisoner swap. The Justice Secretary confirmed to reporters that Indonesia wants Australian drug suspect Gregor Johan Has in exchange for Guo. Has was arrested in POGO City, Cebu, just this May after the Interpol issued a red notice for him. He is one of Indonesia's most wanted for allegedly smuggling illegal drugs into the country. For News 5, Ria Fernandez, We Are One News.
Well, President Marcos welcomed news of Alice Guo's arrest and thanked the Indonesian government for their assistance. But he also had a warning for those who helped her escape undetected.
All of those who are implicated in assisting Alice Guo to leave the Philippines illegally as a fugitive from justice will certainly pay the price. Tanong nyo, sino yung sisibakin? Hindi lang namin sila sisibakin, kakasuhan pa namin sila. Dahil ang kanilang ginawa ay labag sa batas at against all of the interests of the Philippine judicial system.
All senators were also naturally pleased to hear Guo had been arrested. The Senate had issued a warrant for her arrest on July 13, so it is expected that Guo will be turned over to the custody of the upper chamber shortly after she is deported. Senators Ontiveros and Gatchalian, the two who had been leading the investigation into POGOs, say they expect her attendance and full cooperation.
I'm fully expecting magsasalita na siya ng kumpleto at katotohanan. Kasi patunay itong pag-aresto sa kanya na hindi siya makakatakas talaga. Kumbaga, she has nowhere else to go. At yung mga tumulong sa kanyang makatakas, hindi namin sila tatantanan.
Wala na siyang choice no? Dead end na ito para sa kanya. Ito na yung dead end. No? Nakita natin ang daming kasong hinaharap niya. Well, hindi kami papayag, hindi siya magsasalita. Tatagal siya dito. At we will transfer her to a regular detention cell.
Even Guo's lawyer, attorney Stephen David, said this: her being captured and forced to face the music could be good for her.
With this development, we can now face the legal battles without any fear na ma-default tayo because of her non-appearance, di ba? Actually, this is good for her, and she just doesn't realize it right now.
How will Alice Guo be brought back to the country is the next big question. Let's ask our first guest for tonight. We have attorney Winston Castro. He's a spokesman of PAOK, or the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission. Good evening, attorney. Thanks for being with us again. Finally, we have some good news to talk about, eh?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. I'm Director Casio. I'm the spokesperson of PAOK.
Director Casio is what I'll call you then. Listen, so it's great news, but the question on everyone's minds is, to be honest, how were Indonesian authorities able to capture her in just a few weeks whilst we couldn't? What do you think happened here?
Well, first of all, we do have to thank the Indonesian government. In fact, the Indonesian embassy was here a few hours ago. By the way, forgive the noise. I'm here at the processing center of PAOK to process the detainees that we were able to apprehend from Lapu-Lapu during our operation last week. Now, going back to your question, we have to thank the Indonesian embassy and the Indonesian government for their assistance in catching Alice Guo. And by the way, a good part of her capture, I mean, the credit would have to go to, a good deal of the credit would have to go to the Bureau of Immigration of our country, because they have always been on a 24/7 alert, 24/7 contact with their counterparts in Indonesia. The other question, how were they able to get her while we failed to get her while she was still in the Philippines? The answer to that question is quite clear. During the time that she was in the Philippines, there was no criminal arrest warrant that was issued against Alice Guo. Therefore, we could not possibly detain her. Now, what was the warrant that was issued to her? The only warrant that was in her name was a legislative warrant for her failure to appear before the Senate during their hearing. And only the Senate Sergeant at Arms could implement those warrants.
Okay, Director Casio, It's been a while, no, since nakalabas nga sila Alice Guo, Sheila Guo, Cassandra Ong, et al. Ang tanong, Director Casio, do we have a clearer picture of what happened during the earlier part of that trip, aka, i.e. pala, saan po sila dumaan? Do we have a clearer picture? Saan po sila talaga nag-land? Sa KL po ba? Or sa Sabah? At ano po yung nagyari doon sa gulo, doon sa stamp sa kanyang passport?
Now, the answer to the question would be, I would imagine we would know about it by the time that she arrives in the Philippines. But of course, listening to your earlier story, I've heard about, so it's public knowledge now that there is an attempt for the Indonesian embassy to swap one of our prisoners with her. So I don't know if that is official, but we've heard about that this morning. But then again, once we go through that hump, once we're able to go through that hump, we would be able to get her here in the Philippines. And once she's here, I hope she cooperates. I hope she answers all the questions that we ask of her, not only in relation to the POGO activities of Bamban and Porac, but more importantly now, who assisted her, who enabled her escape from the Philippines in the early part of July. Because the answer to your question is, we are nowhere near, us, as far as the Commission is concerned, we are nowhere near the answer to that question. A good chunk of the answer would have to come from Alice Guo herself.
Okay, while we wait for that, can you clarify, Director? Meron po bang warrant? Ano po yung warrant now na nagkakaiba? Before, like you said, everyone knew it was the Senate warrant.
You said it was
There is no warrant against Alice Guo
until now.
That of the Senate hearing.
Okay.
A Senate warrant.
Correct.
Remember, there is no resolution yet as to the qualified trafficking in person case that we filed against her. There is also no resolution as to the money laundering case that we filed against her.
Right.
In the absence of those resolutions, the respective courts cannot issue an arrest warrant against her.
Right.
So I imagine she would be remanded to the custody of the Senate once she arrives in the Philippines in the next few days.
But didn't you just say that the reason the Indonesian authorities were able to capture her quickly was because there's a criminal warrant out for her? Whereas before, when she was still here, there was just a legislative warrant, which is why you couldn't capture her.
I may have misspoken. There is no criminal warrant.
Right.
What the Indonesian government was able to use to capture her was a request from the Philippine government due to the fact that Ms. Guo is a fugitive from a criminal investigation in the Philippines.
Okay.
So it is merely an immigration document.
Did PAOK help in the eventual capture of Ms. Guo?
Come again, sorry.
Did PAOK, your organization, help in the eventual capture of Ms. Guo? Did you provide intelligence?
No. All that we did is coordinate with our Indonesian counterparts. But as far as her capture is concerned, all the credit goes to the Bureau of Immigration. It was them who has been on a 24/7 lookout and coordination with their counterparts in Indonesia.
Okay, Mr. Casio, since nabanggit nyo na rin po, no, and in the beginning when you clarified where you were and kung bakit po maingay, as early as now, are you looking at the Lapu-Lapu illegal POGO operation, of which the raid happened itong last weekend lang? Do you think as early as now may connection po ito dito sa Bamban operation? I believe lumabas sa balita na may isang tao po na galing daw po sa Bamban or sa Porac operation na nahanap doon sa Lapu-Lapu. Can you clarify?
Yes, ma'am. That's 100% accurate. We've got 5 Filipino nationals here who in one way or the other was connected to both Porac and Bamban. They were administrative staff in Bamban and or Porac. Likewise, around 2/3 the foreign nationals that are detained here now from Lapu-Lapu were originally from Bamban and or Porac. So according to the initial interview that we obtained from the foreign nationals, they got a tip, their managers in Porac, got a tip as early as June 3 that we were going to raid their POGO facility. Remember that the raid happened on June 4. So a day prior to the actual raid, they got the tip already. Then they flew out of Luzon through the Clark International Airport, heading into Lapu-Lapu June 8th. So obviously, someone somewhere betrayed the integrity of our operation last June in Porac, Pampanga.
Okay, Sir Casio, well, reports also surfaced in Indonesian news outlets that their government wants to do an exchange or swap of prisoners. So in exchange for Alice Guo, they're asking the Philippine government to surrender one of their most wanted drug suspects, and that's Gregor Johan Haas. He was arrested by the Bureau of Immigration back in May, which is almost 4 months ago, no? So, are you looking into this already? What's the latest on Gregor Haas? I mean, do we still have custody of him, and can we turn him over to Indonesian authorities?
Well, Mr. Haas was arrested around May due to a red notice that was given to us by the Indonesian authorities for drug trafficking charges, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Haas is reputed to be a member of the Sinaloa drug cartel in Mexico. But there is a slight complication here. Mr. Haas is not an Indonesian national. He is an Australian national. So there is a third country who has to enter the negotiations here. It has to be a discussion between the Philippines, Indonesia, and Australia. Then we would defer to the Department of Justice, who has supervision over the Bureau of Immigration as to what we would do with Mr. Haas in relation to the proposed prisoner swap with Alice Guo.
Right, and we'll ask DOJ that immediately after your interview, but I wanted to come back to Alice Guo first to follow up on Shawn's question. What else do we know about how she escaped? Sheila Guo said that they escaped via 3 boats to enter, took those to enter Malaysia, but Justice Secretary Remulla said he doesn't believe this story. What else have you found out?
Well, again, I would have to defer to Alice Guo's statement when she arrives in the Philippines in the next few days. Because this is a family of scammers, this is a family of liars, this is a family who has lived its life on an intricate web of lies. So we'd have to verify their stories, counter-verify, triangulate the sources of information, because we don't believe anything anymore that comes out of the mouth of any of the Guo family members. We'd have to validate all of their information. So we'll have to wait for Alice Guo's version of their supposed escape from the Philippines.
Okay, Director, since we're on the topic of the family, no, kulang pa tayo ng isa. Si Wesley Guo po ay supposedly nasa Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong, unlike Indonesia, wala po sa ASEAN, I assume labas po yan dun sa same deal, no, yung interchanging deal that we have with Indonesia or whatever the technical term is. Pero what are the options when it comes to Wesley Guo, and what has Hong Kong promised to our government if meron?
To be honest, among the Guo siblings, Wesley is the least of our priority because we have no criminal charges of yet that has been filed against Wesley Guo. So as you imagine, as you have seen in the past several weeks, we have focused our efforts on Sheila, on Alice, on Seaman. In as much as these 3 have pending criminal charges against them already. Now, with regard to Wesley, as early as 3 weeks ago, we've already been informed that he tried to leave for Hong Kong. As of yet, we have yet to get a definite verification from the government of the administrative region of Hong Kong, whether if he actually made it to Hong Kong.
What about Seaman? Do we know where he is? I mean, I know he's also not the main target here, but has anyone tried to secure his location or at least where he is?
We definitely have no idea where he is, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want to be lying to the public, but the last information that we got about him is he was in Cambodia. But we're not definite anymore, or we're not sure anymore if he's still in Cambodia. Remember that no cases were filed against all of these family members up until a few weeks ago. No? it's not easy to file charges against these people because they have done a very intricate layer of corporate layering. So it's very difficult to develop substantial cases against these people. Unlike in the past, the current government do not file cases that are based on flimsy evidence. We have to have solid evidence. So all right, the people would the people are trying to take us apart. I mean, we've been getting a lot of brickbats from a lot of the public, a lot from the public because they said we've taken our sweet time to file the cases. No, that's not accurate. We only wanted to make sure that all of the cases that we file would stick and that they're not based on flimsy evidence. Unfortunately, I would say that other agencies failed to do a 24/7 watch on the Guo family. That is why they were able to escape. It is for that reason that the president is calling for, has asked for an investigation. And we are conducting that investigation to be able to identify who among us failed to do their job in securing the locations of the Guo siblings. Because had we been able to do that, had all of the government agencies been able to do that, we would not be in the situation now.
And we look forward to getting that information as well and getting those names once you have them. Thanks for your time tonight, Director of PAOK, Winston Casio. Okay, let's try to flesh this storyline with Alice Guo out further. Let me bring in our second guest for tonight, DOJ Undersecretary Nicholas T. Undersecretary T, thanks so much for making time again for us today. I know you've been very busy.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies. Thank you for inviting me again to your show.
You've heard our reporting. The first thing I need your thoughts on is this idea of a prisoner swap. Justice Secretary Remulla has confirmed that Indonesia wants an exchange of prisoners. They want the alleged drug kingpin Gregor Haas in exchange for Guo. Haas is, of course, on Indonesia's most wanted list. Give us a better sense of how the DOJ is seeing this.
We've seen the reports from Indonesian media that supposedly they're asking for this swap of individuals. But I'm not exactly privy to the existence of an official request on the part of Indonesia for that swap. It's the BI that currently has custody over Haas, and neither DOJ nor BI has had any official request. What we do know is that PNP is closely collaborating with its counterpart in Indonesia, who presently has custody over Alice Guo. And we are hopeful that Mayor Guo will be brought home at the soonest possible time, and this possibility of a prisoner swap won't serve as an obstacle to that.
Sorry. Because Justice Secretary Remulla held a press conference earlier today, and he was asked for confirmation whether or not, the complication that he was talking about was the prisoner swap. So are you saying that there has been no formal communication from Indonesia to the DOJ in regards to this prisoner swap?
Yes. No formal communication as of end of office hours earlier, unless it wasn't relayed to me. So certainly this possible obstacle it's something that's there in the media, something obviously that we are looking at. But so far, at least from current indications, it's still not official.
Was Justice Secretary Remulla relying on Indonesian media reports then, do you think?
Reports as well as things that we already know. Things that we already know that there's this background talk of this possibility. Okay. But so far, it hasn't been triggered yet. Unless something happened there in Indonesia already while PNP is talking with their counterparts.
Based on what I gathered from that press con, Yusek, and I was actually going to ask you this to try to explain to a regular person like me, right? What Secretary of Justice Remulla said was that magkakaproblema kasi nasa police. For Alice Guo, ang police ang nakakuha sa kanya. Right? For the rest, it was the immigration authorities of Indonesia that were able to get her. Ano po yung magiging difference? Okay, without covering the prisoner swap or whatever, since that's still up in the air, what would be the difference na yung police nilang nakahuli vis-a-vis yung immigration authorities?
So I'll just harp on what you said, Shawn. I'm not confirming anything. Let's not let's not pursue this angle yet unless it's official. Right. But there's a difference between immigration custody and police custody. Immigration custody, it would be solely an immigration issue, meaning that they can deport Alice Guo as an undesirable alien, which is something that we usually do. It's something that we've done for the different foreign nationals that we've arrested for implication in illegal POGOs. On the other hand, it could be a police issue because it's the police that has the interest in the investigation and prosecution of drug offenses there. So that's why there's a significance on who has custody over Alice Guo in Indonesia.
As PAOK spokesman Winston Casio pointed out, there aren't currently no criminal charges filed against Alice Guo yet. How does that complicate the case? How does that muddy the picture?
Well, I think very soon, a criminal charge may be filed because as of Tuesday last week, the qualified trafficking in persons case against Alice Guo and company was already submitted for resolution. And I was informed that we should expect a resolution within the week. Of course, I don't want to get ahead of the prosecutors who will have the final say. But prior to that, when speaking to the team who investigated the case and filed and provided the evidence, it seems that we have a strong case, especially considering that there's a big chance that Mayor Guo's counter affidavit will not be considered. In other words, at least for Mayor Guo, it will only be the state's evidence that will be considered to determine if she should be brought to court.
So the first possible criminal charge would be qualified trafficking? Possible.
Hopefully.
Possible.
Or, of course, there's another possibility. If you remember what happened to Sheila Guo when she was brought home, Sheila and Cassandra Ong, they were subjected to a warrantless arrest by NBI. They went through inquest, and they were subsequently charged as well. So I think it's likely that qualified trafficking resolution will come first, but they're going if indeed they're going to go through warrantless arrest, there's going to be a close proximity of these two cases.
If Indonesia does come through with a formal request for a prisoner swap, how would DOJ see that? Help us understand the implications of a high-value exchange of prisoners like that.
Certainly, that's going to be a lot more agencies will be involved. It won't be just us. Of course, Bureau of Immigration will come into the picture because they have custody over Haas. PNP would come into the picture because it's their counterpart that we're dealing with, and DFA will come into the picture as well because there's a diplomatic issue here. So it's going to be a little more complicated, but it could also not be. Maybe we will. So we'll see. Let's wait and see because we are hopeful. Indonesia has been very good to us during the course of all this. They're a good neighbor, and we've been a good neighbor to them as well. Dr. Casio mentioned earlier the recent raid in Lapu-Lapu City where several Indonesian nationals were rescued, and that's been the case. And a lot of other POGOs that we've raided, Indonesian nationals have also been rescued. So we can rely on very good diplomatic relationship with Indonesia to hopefully have our way. Because they are aware just how important Alice Guo is to us.
But another clarification, Yusek, like Regina said, he is Mr. Haas, Gregory Haas, is one of the most wanted in Indonesia. However, as Director Casio pointed out, he is Australian. So how does this, what takes precedence, yung pagkaka-Australian niya or yung pagkaka-most wanted niya sa Indonesia? Or yung mga...
It's up in the air.
Right.
It really depends on how all parties will come into agreement. It's even possible, hopefully, this is what can happen, that Mayor Guo will be deported to us first, and we'll just talk about Haas afterwards. It won't be kaliwaan, no. So let's see how things go.
So there has to be there's going to be a negotiation first before she gets deported. So can I confirm at this point in time there is?
I don't know because there hasn't been any official request to us for Haas.
That's true.
And what I understand is that PNP is there right now, and we are actually optimistic that she'll be brought home soon. So we'll see.
Do we have a timeline yet, or have you heard anything on when she might be brought back?
Nothing definite, but some people are saying that let's wait tomorrow. I think tomorrow will be in the edge of our seat tomorrow.
Okay. We've been on the edge of our seats for weeks.
Yes.
For weeks.
Yes.
Yusek T, if since we've got you, I wonder if we could just pivot to another high-profile case. I'm talking
Yes,
about Apollo
sure.
Kibuloy. There is a standoff going on in Davao. It's been 12 days since the police raided the compound. They keep saying they're confident that Kibuloy is still there, potentially hiding in the underground bunkers, even though KOJC disputes that. What is your interpretation of the law here? Does the law allow the police to stay there indefinitely in the service of the warrant against Kibuloy?
Well, warrants of arrest under the rules of court, they can be, police can do what they can as long as it's reasonable and legal to implement that warrant of arrest. So from what we gather is that the KOJC compound is quite a vast property, 30 hectares. And aside from that, there are a lot of nooks and crannies in there that are not that easy to look into. And then the past few days, we've seen resistance from the subjects of KOJC. So I would say that it seems reasonable for the police to continue with their search.
Added to that, Yusek T, this has been really on my mind for days now. I've asked some lawyers and no one can seem to give me a straight answer. So I was hoping you could shed some light. In the serving of this arrest warrant, of course, the two camps, I'm sure you're familiar with what both sides are saying. For example, there's some activity of the police in there, inside the compound, and the members are alleging they can hear drilling, ganun. Can they observe? I mean, do they have a right to be there as to witness or at least observe what's going on? Or are arrest warrants able to be served without any witnesses, unlike search warrants?
There can be witnesses for the service of any warrant, whether both a search warrant or an arrest warrant. But then again, we just leave it to the police. They're the ones who are there on the ground. They are the ones who know the lay of the land, how safe it is. And because we have to realize that there has been significant resistance on the part of individuals, on the part of the subjects of KOJC. So, let's leave it to the police to exercise the discretion as to what's reasonable under the circumstances.
One of our co-anchors and editors, Ed Lingao, actually pointed out a specific ruling to us. He says Rule 126 of the Rules of Criminal Procedure require at least 2 witnesses for premises being searched. Requires 2 witnesses.
That's for search warrant. That's a search warrant.
It doesn't
provision.
apply to arrest warrants?
It's not. This is a warrant of arrest. But I would say that it's good. It would be prudent to have witnesses during the course of the implementation of an arrest warrant.
Prudent, but not by law necessary.
Depends on the circumstances. Again, we leave it to the police to determine what is reasonable under the circumstances that they're facing.
Thanks so much for clearing that up.
But that's the problem, it seems, Yusek, because we have been talking to KOJC's legal counsel, Attorney Torion, as well, and we have seen the footage with our own eyes, and we've had reporters on the ground, and we know that the KOJC members, for instance, are being barred from entering, for instance, the Jose Maria College.
The basement.
Specifically the basement where allegedly drilling is happening. They're being barred from entering. Also the cathedral, which the Commission on Human Rights has already flagged.
Yes.
So again, the DOJ, what is the DOJ's responsibility here in ensuring that this search, this service of arrest warrant is still being carried out lawfully?
Well, I read from the news that KOJC intends to bring this case to, I think, the Davao Council, the Davao local government, as well as the Commission on Human Rights. So perhaps those are the proper venues to make a determination if the behavior of the police has been reasonable during the course of this operation.
So that's the only way to resolve the issue or the question, Yusek, because syempre, no, kung dadalhin pa sa korte, magtatagal pa yan eh. And in the meantime, more things could be happening and contested in the future, which could also blow back eventually, right? Down the line, kung magkakasuhan na once this is all over. Yun nga po eh, is the DOJ planning to step in or just, like you said, let the police exercise their discretion?
Well, let's not forget the background of all this. The primary issue here is not really the means of the implementation of the police of the search warrant. It's actually the implementation of the search warrant. And there has been a lot of resistance to the implementation of the search warrant, which impelled our police to take it beyond what is ordinary, to take it beyond what they usually go through. And at the same time, I know it's been said a lot, but this matter can be ended simply by the surrender of Pastor Kibuloy.
Is the DOJ still confident then that whatever operations are being conducted down there is well within the bounds of the law?
Well, again, we just leave it up to the police because they're the ones on the ground. They're the ones who truly face the challenges. They're the ones who see just how vast and intricate this compound is. So if ever there will be a question, that should arise later on. If ever Pastor Kibuloy is indeed arrested, that's another thing that his camp can raise.
So no one from KOJC has approached the Justice Department, who is after all responsible for making sure that justice, is deserved by everybody, is actually being followed.
Some cases have been filed. Some cases have been filed in the prosecutor's office against Secretary himself and as well as other policemen. Yeah. But these were prior to this recent operation. If they want to file cases in the DOJ, they can. They are welcome to do so, and those will be entertained just like any other case.
Okay, we've run out of time, although we still have a lot of questions. But thank you so much for indulging us tonight, DOJ Undersecretary Nicholas T.
Well, we still have more stories coming up after the break. POGO resource person Cassandra Ong had to be whisked out of the hearing today after hours of intense questioning from the Quad Committee. The details when the big story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You are watching the big story here on One News.
The fourth Quadcom hearing took a dramatic turn this evening when Lucky South 99-point person Cassandra Ong suddenly fell ill. She had to be brought out of the session hall shortly before 6 in the evening today after feeling weak. The resident physician of the lower chamber then later reported that her blood pressure and blood sugar levels were quite abnormal. Lawmakers excused her for the rest of the hearing and recommended that she be brought to the hospital. But before this, Ong tested lawmakers' patience with her answers. Grilled about the extent of her involvement in POGO operations, Ong initially insisted that she had none. She said that her company Whirlwind only leased space to Lucky South 99 and nothing more. But even later on, she admitted that she paid PAGCOR for Lucky South's license renewal at some point.
Bakit ikaw ang nagbabayad ng utang ng Lucky South sa PAGCOR, Mr. Chair?
Authorized representative lamang po ako. Di po ako mismo yung nag-apply sa POGO. Renewal lang nung pumunta
Hindi
po
pa
kami.
kasama ka ni Atty. Jairo sa
Yes
PAGCOR?
po, for renewal po.
Ibig sabihin, ikaw ang nag-renew o nag-apply, whatever it is. Basta napunta ka sa PAGCOR.
Ms. Ong also refused to answer when asked about how much exactly she invested in Whirlwind. When it came to the school she attended, Ong was also cagey.
Why do you refuse to answer Congressman Pimentel when he asked you about your schooling?
Hindi po kasi nakapagtapos.
Hindi naman nakakaya, hindi ka nakapagtapos eh. Gusto lang na yung malaman kung saan ka nag-aral. Yun naman ang tanong, di ba? Hindi naman tinanong na kung saan ka nagtapos. Ang kitatanong natin, kung saan ka nag-aral. Oh, pwede ba sagutin mo yun?
Mr. Chair, marami po akong school na pinag-aralan po.
Wala kang school na pinag-aralan o doon ka nag-aral sa China, hindi sa Manila?
Kick-out student po ako.
Kick-out ka.
Now, for a good part of the Quad hearing, lawmakers grew increasingly frustrated at Cassie Ong's non-responses that they eventually came close to citing her in contempt and reprimanded her about this several times.
And let it be put on record that Cassie Ong is lying because inconsistent po yung sinasabi niya kanina. Nakikinig lang po ako, is not representing Lucky South 999, but here comes the payment of accounts. Siya po ang bumayad. Kahit sabihin mo pa po, hindi mo pera from Chen. But still, you represent Lucky South 99 in PAGCOR to settle that account. That's on record. At pag dinay mo, you're lying na. Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, dalawa na yan.
Thank you.
Pag pangatlo, baka mapilitan ako that I will move to cite you again in contempt.
Okay lang po magsalita po?
Yeah, tapos
Pero
mo.
po, hindi po ako, wala po akong kinalaman.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. We cannot allow this kind of attitude from Ms. Ong. Allow the members to finish their question, okay? Masyado kang pa-cute eh.
Yikes, that was harsh. Still on POGOs, following President Marcos's order for a total ban, several POGOs have voluntarily shut down. Mayan Los Baños has that story.
Some POGO companies in the country are voluntarily closing down, according to the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation or PAGCOR. This follows President Bongbong Marcos's order for a total ban on POGOs by the end of the year. During a hearing of the Senate Committee on Games and Amusement, PAGCOR Chairman and CEO Alejandro Tenco reported that one of the POGO companies that announced its closure is located in Island Cove, Cavite, which will cease operations by December 15. To verify this, the compound will be open to senators and PAGCOR on December 16. PAGCOR will also continue to cancel POGO licenses.
Nung SONA, 41 na lang po ngayon. So 5 na po yung kinansila namin because of numerous violations. Sa panig po ng PAGCOR, naniniwala po ako na walang magiging problema in terms of us canceling all the licenses. Malaki pong hamon ito talaga sa Bureau of Immigration, gayon din po sa law enforcement agencies. Dahil ang paniwala ko po, talagang yung mga iba dyan, patuloy pa rin, masakit man sabihin, patuloy na mag-ooperate illegally.
Elsewhere in the country, authorities have also begun closing down POGO operations. At around 11 in the morning, police trucks arrived one by one at the tourist garden resort in Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. In that hotel, an illegal POGO operation where foreigners were working was discovered. Later on, the hands of the arrested POGO workers were tied one by one before they were loaded onto the trucks. Among them was Shoki Zhao, the owner of the hotel and resort where the illegal POGO hub was discovered.
There indeed is a POGO operation happening here, as well as other forms of scam, like scam, love scam, investment scam, based on the initial evaluation of the evidence that we have seen during the rescue, like computers and documents leading to those kind of criminal activity.
In all, nearly 170 foreigners were arrested and will be charged by the Bureau of Immigration. Among them are 16 who served as recruiters. Most of the arrested individuals are Chinese and Indonesian.
They were charged, all of them were charged in violation of the immigration law for being undocumented and working without proper visa. Among those are 19 Chinese, 69 Indonesian, 6 Myanmar, and 1 Malaysian and 2 Taiwanese.
Along with this, interagency meetings have already begun involving PAGCOR, DOLE, BI, PAOK, and PNP to discuss what actions should be taken to ensure that no POGO or internet gaming licensee remains operating by December 31.
To IGLs, nagpatawag po kami ng meeting ng August 27, nandun po ang DOLE, nandun po ang Bureau of Immigration, nandun po ang PAGCOR, at doon po ay inanunsyo na ng Bureau of Immigration, at sabi ko nga, sayang at wala sila, na ang mga working visas po na 9G ay kakanselahan na nila 59 days before December 31. Pagkatapos po noon, ay wala na talagang visa.
The closure of POGOs will be implemented in batches, possibly starting in October. Meanwhile, the Labor Department will continue to cancel the alien employment permits of foreign POGO workers. In NCR alone, over 24,000 alien employment permits have been canceled. Cancellations have also been done in Calabarzon, Central Luzon, and Northern Mindanao. But senators want to ensure that POGO workers will actually be sent back to their home countries.
Sa wind down, importante rin ang responsibilidad ng pulis. Pwedeng may possibility na maiwan sila dito at magtago. Yun ang aking punto. At na hindi magiging malinis itong ating pag-wind down at closure ng POGO kung yung mga ito naman maiiwan at magpapatakbo sila ng sarili nilang mga scamming hub.
Malacanang will issue an executive order clarifying the total ban on POGOs. According to PAGCOR, this is necessary because there are questions about whether the ban includes POGOs located in export processing zones, where there are rumors that some of them may relocate to. For News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Now, aside from POGOs, the House Quad Committee also tackled the issue of killings over illegal drugs today. One of them was a case of Chinese prisoners who were allegedly murdered on the orders of top officials 8 years ago. Marian Enriquez has that story.
The former warden of the Davao Prison and Penal Farm sang a different tune when he faced members of the House Quad Committee again. Today, Bureau of Corrections Senior Superintendent Gerardo Padilla admitted knowing about the alleged murder of 3 Chinese drug lords back in 2016 during his watch. In fact, he claimed it was former Davao CIDG officer Regina Garma who ordered him to just look the other way when the hit is carried out. Garma also served as PCSO General Manager under the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte. Here's Representative Johnny Pimentel reading a portion of Padilla's written testimony.
Sabi po ni Chief Garma, yung pong tawag ninyo, may mga tao kami dyan na gagawa at huwag mo na questionin. And whether you like it or not, we will operate and do not interfere. Baka madamay pa pamilya mo. Mag-cooperate ka na lang or mananagot ka sa amin. Meron kami ipapa-operate. Ano ho ba ang pagkakaintindi nyo sa sinabi po ni Colonel Garma?
Just last week, Padilla denied meeting with Garma and said they only spoke via cell phone. He also said that he has never met former President Duterte. Padilla stood by this at today's hearing.
Personal, kilala mo ba siya?
No, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Nakita na ba kayo?
Hindi po nangyari. Nakita na po kami.
It was at this point that House Committee on Public Accounts Chairman Caraps Paduano showed Duterte, Garma, and Padilla all together in some photos.
Sinabi mo na hindi. Kaya, you must tell all. You must be truthful to your statement.
Hindi ko po talaga kilala, Your Honor. May mga occasion, kasal, siyempre, public picture, ganon, in Davao City.
Meron kayong mga pictures.
Sasamal po yan.
Oh.
Pero hindi po kami magkumpare, Ninong.
Bakit pares kay Maylay?
Bakit pareho kay Maylay?
Nag-attend lang po kami niyan kasi yung kinasal dyan, yun yung kaibigan ko, Mike Ruiz. Pero personally, hindi. Picture taking lang po yan as a public figure.
In an earlier House hearing, prisoner Leopoldo Tan confessed to killing 3 Chinese drug lords in the Davao prison that Padilla used to head. Moments after the killings, Tan claimed overhearing Padilla talking on the phone to someone that sounded like President Duterte.
Kayo ba ay nagkaroon ng intense pressure sa kanyang sinabi o sa isip ninyo meron pang tao behind what Chief Garma said at mas mataas po ito?
That's true.
Ang binabanggit ninyo ito, yung pong behind the big person sa sinabi po ni Chief Garma ay inyong ini-implicate ang ating Pangulo, ang ating former President. Ganun po ba?
Hindi ko naman po in-implicate pero hawak po sila ng mas mataas.
Okay, ibig sabihin yan, hawak po si Chief Garma ng mas mataas. At ang mas mataas niyan ay ang dating Pangulo. Tama ho ba ako?
Yes, Your Honor.
While Padilla has admitted to knowing about the plan to kill the 3 Chinese prisoners, he said he did not actively participate in it. Lawmakers find that hard to believe and agree to a closed-door session afterwards to get more information out of Padilla. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
President Bongbong Marcos dismissed allegations from Vice President Sara Duterte that his House allies were politicizing the OVP budget hearings. The Vice President got into a heated exchange with several members of the lower house last week after she refused to answer questions about her use of confidential funds in previous years. She was also questioned about the 10 million pesos being allocated to distribute the children's book she wrote entitled Isang Kaibigan. Eventually, she accused the lawmakers of following a script to attack her. Marcos said it's only natural for the House to scrutinize where public funds go.
So it's a hearing. There's no politics in it. We do it every year. We do it with the same department. We do it. That process is well established and it has nothing to do with politics. I don't know how she can characterize these things, which is essentially an information gathering exercise for the House and for the Senate, so that they know what the budget will look like. So there's malayo sa politika yun.
In today's ambush interview, Marcos was also asked about Vice President Duterte apologizing to Kingdom of Jesus Christ members for asking them to support him during the 2022 elections.
It's a prerogative. I still don't understand why, but that is her wish. Wala tayong magkakaroon.
Well, what do you know? We've just run out of time. But before we go, here is our big picture tonight. A lot of people are asking exactly how bad the flooding has gotten, especially from Tropical Storm Enteng. Well, we've already seen raging floodwaters that actually hit several areas for the first time, meaning they weren't used to that. And then we have this, our big picture. An evacuation center that got flooded. According to the uploader, this was taken at a center in Barangay Talaba, Bacoor, Cavite, as heavy rains from Enteng started. It was also the first time that this happened to this particular evacuation center, which always housed residents during calamities. The uploader added that the water came and rose quite fast.
I don't know how much more we can stress the urgency of this situation if even the evacuation center is getting
Where do we go?
flooded, right? I mean, we were just talking to DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan last night, and he keeps saying that, yes, the flood control projects are ongoing and they have completed a few small ones, but the question is, well, he answered this question as to why there can't be a single unified nationwide master plan, and that's because
certainly it can be completed much faster, especially if it's an emergency. We've seen funds being mobilized for emergencies, just like in COVID, when they were able to work together to free up funds for an emergency. And I think this is quite alarming.
I don't know that funds are the problem. Yes, the funds for foreign assisted development, for foreign assisted projects has been cut for next year, but DPWH still gets, if I'm not mistaken, second or third biggest.
So it's not the cash per se, right? Just like with DepEd, it's not the presence of the cash that's a
I'm
problem.
not sure. We keep trying to sniff this problem out. And one day, hopefully, we'll get to an answer as to why the flooding still hits Metro Manila severely, despite
we all
increasing budget every year, right?
So hopefully those answers come, Reg, before we all get just washed out of this country. On that note, that's it for the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.